Welcome to Fun with Annuities, where every single week I welcome a celebrity guest expert that can help you maximize Chapter 2 of your life. Listen, learn, laugh, and love every minute of the most unique financial podcast on the planet. Let's get to it. Welcome to Fun with Annuities. I'm your host, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent, licensed in all 50 states. I want to welcome everyone on all the major podcast platforms and the brave people out there watching the Fun with Annuities YouTube channel. I am glad to welcome back a previous guest who, I just have to catch him in between travels and plane trips. He's all over the place. Very, very smart, money manager, private client type person that I'm going to have all his information on my site. I encourage you to connect with him if you're searching for a real person, a person that can get to your level, whatever the level that is, and tell you the truth. One of the good people in the industry. I'd like to welcome back Adam Van Wee of Van Wee Financial. Adam, welcome to Fun with Annuities.
Thanks, Stan. I really appreciate it, and thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. Adam is based in North Florida. I do have a home in North Florida. As you know, I do also live a little bit in Las Vegas, which our main office is now located. So North Florida is, if you haven't been there, it's not South Florida. Let's put it like that. That's the reason we all live in North Florida. It's a very nice place. Adam, let's jump right in. Let's talk about the stock market. Tell me what's going on in the markets at the time of this taping, and let's talk about just 2023 as a broad base and looking into 2024. What are you seeing both good and bad right now?
Yeah, great topic. It's been such an unusual year after a very unusual year last year. So I guess that if you had to sum up this year, it's been great, surprisingly great. The Nasdaq's up almost 30%. Mm-hmm. The S&P is up, 15% or so, and the overall feeling in the market is like, what recession? But you turn on any news channel, all you'll hear about is the impending doom. The recession is coming. Yeah, I don't know if the recession's coming or not, but the stock market is acting like we are headed into a really good time. And but if you look at the economy, it certainly doesn't feel that way. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect right now between the market and what people's expectations are. But that happens more often than you would think. Last year, everything felt probably a lot better than it does now, and the market did nothing but go down. So the market always looks ahead. People can't always think outside of the current situation that they're in, and that's pretty normal to feel that way. But the market's looking ahead and telling us at this point that things are looking better on the horizon, which, thank goodness, after last year is all I can say.
Well, it's been interesting because typically it's a contrarian seesaw effect when the Fed raises rates, et cetera. And it seems like the stock market has just ignored that totally. What Chairman, I call him Boog Powell, if you're an Orioles fan, you know what that is. What Boog Powell's doing and the Dutch boy haircut Yellen, what they're doing, it's been great for people that want higher interest rates, but from the stock market standpoint, it has been interesting to see. Do you think that's pent-up demand and liquidity from the COVID years?
I do think there's some of that. A lot of what we're seeing right now all ties back to the COVID, really the response to the COVID pandemic. We're in such an unprecedented time, and I normally hate when people say that, but this truly is. We've never done what we did during the COVID pandemic. Yeah, we've never shut down the economy. We've never injected that much liquidity and new money into the economy at one time. So a lot of this is just I call it the COVID boomerang effect. We're seeing all these unusual economic situations because of actions that took place a few years ago. And yes, I think that all of what you're seeing today is part of that response to the COVID response.
Let's just hope that they don't feel the government, they don't feel they can do it again. I think there would be so much blowback on this country from what we've now know about the truth. It would be interesting. Yet when I travel across the country, I'll go to San Francisco and half the people walking down the street outside are wearing masks. I'm going, I don't know what's going on here. Maybe they're not reading the same thing I'm reading, but
Apparently not.
it's interesting. So from the standpoint of, there's been a lot of things that even the experts have looked at and said, well, this should happen if this happens. Bitcoin and crypto in general has been one that's a head scratcher, just because I really think that the support of that sector is very, very thin and held very, very and within a few hands, in my opinion. What's your take on crypto? Because a lot of people still ask me about that, and everybody wants the next Tesla or the next Apple, and they want to get rich quick. What do you tell your clients about crypto right here? All 7,000 of them ish.
Yeah, crypto, I tend to agree with you. It's a very, very thinly held asset. I do think that there are a handful of people that probably control the bulk of it.
I agree.
I don't look at it as a viable investment for my clients today. I do think it has a future. I think that there are a lot of things about crypto I really like, but I don't put money into things that can generally lose a huge percentage of their value in 24 hours or less. And that, to me, that's what crypto is today. Now, in the future, that might be different, but I can't make a real case for crypto increasing in value. What's driving it, except for demand, which was somewhat artificially created during the COVID pandemic with all these people staying home and trying to get rich quick and nothing else to do. Sure, throw some money at crypto and see if you win the lottery. But is it a viable investment today? Not to me, but I love the blockchain technology.
Correct.
And I do think that there's a viable future for crypto, just not on the investment side today.
Would it surprise you if this going down a little bit of a conspiracy rabbit hole, but not much? Would it surprise you if the government or governments eventually controlled that crypto space, or at least wiped out most of the crypto because they created a US coin, or, Biden coin, Trump coin, whatever, whoever's in? My point is, I see the governments, plural, liking the crypto blockchain space, because if that was in place, you literally could tax people real time. April 15th will go away. You could steer policy via that way. I don't want you to put on the tinfoil hat, because you're one of the most rational people I know. What is your take on that? And have you thought through kind of where this is all headed, maybe?
I do think about it, and a lot of it is driven by my clients, because they're asking me the same question all the time. We get it so much. And my thinking is that, yes, the government would definitely be interested in something like that. And also, I'm not sure that they could pull it off due to just a whole variety of reasons: the constitutionality of it, the
Constitution. What are you talking about?
I know, crazy document that was written a few hundred years ago, but no big deal there. I just don't know. They might try it, but I do think it might get shot down in the legal system. It just doesn't. It seems like such overreach that I feel like at some point there would be groups of people with a lot of power who would oppose it and be able to stop such a clear overreach of government in that case. But gosh, from a government standpoint, if you're looking at how do I control my voting base, what better way to do it than to control their money?
It's an absolute no-brainer if I'm a politician. And the only thing that gives me pause a little bit is, if you'd have told me they could have shut down the government, printed money, and created an environment where people don't want to work,
sure,
I'd have said, I don't believe that. I mean, that's crazy. But I was having a conversation with a friend last night, and he's like, I think we've lost, some of the younger people, right out of high school or right into college, out of college, they just really don't want to work. I don't know about you, but I try to hire people all the time, and we cannot find people that want to work 5 days a week. We just can't. They literally will come into an interview and say, yeah, I would love to work for your company, but I'd like for it to be flexible. I'm not sure I want to work Fridays. I'm like, you just need to start your own company, player. I mean, but we're seeing that. And I think that's a result of COVID. With that being said, I do think this country is different from other countries. Is when we have a horrific thing happen like that, COVID, we get better. Do you see businesses getting better, i.e. streamlining, etc., based upon what happened?
I do, and to some degree, I think it has been part of the reason the market's improved. I think that businesses are very, especially small businesses, are very good at adapting to whatever situation is thrown at them. And I think the COVID response really changed the way people work and think about work. And I definitely think you're seeing it reflected in the younger people's attitudes. But the fact is they have had a lot of options. You could go and work three 1099 contractor jobs, sort of side hustles, and make a decent living, at least enough to get by. And so, yeah, they say that, but they really do have that option. Now, I think that's changing. I think the power structure is shifting back towards the employer as the further we get away from COVID.
That's a good
But
point.
for the last 3 years, they've they're kind of right. They kind of have had that ability to do that. Now, is that the way the world is gonna go in the future? Is it always going to be like that? I'm not exactly sure, but I do see the power structure shifting back to companies, and hopefully young people are known for being able to adapt. So hopefully they can adapt and come back to the more, I guess, traditional way of thinking about work.
I think businesses became and are continuing to become more efficient with how they do business. And the only thing that concerns me, I'd love to hear your comment on this sector, is just the commercial real estate space.
Yeah.
I know in Las Vegas, there's a lot of beautiful buildings that are business commercial that are empty, and it doesn't look like anyone's moving in.
Right.
Are
I
you
agree.
buying any REITs in that space? Or are you staying away?
I'm staying away right now. I don't love that space, but I do think it's probably a shift. I did see an article the other day that there was a chain of stores that went out of business, and an e-commerce company came in and bought up all the locations just to use them as facilities for shipping out of their e-commerce business.
Sure.
And I think we may see more things like that start to happen. Things that have been traditional storefronts might change into offices or places that point of sale or shipping, distribution points for businesses. So I think there's a lot of reshuffling that's going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years in the commercial space. I don't think that you're going to see the country just go back to what it was. I think it's going to change substantially. Maybe some of those old commercial buildings get turned into condos, because the rate that they're putting up condos around the country is just astronomical. At least here in Florida, and some of my travels, it looks like other places as well. So I think you will see that completely change from what it was. And I would not be a huge investor in the commercial REIT industry or in a commercial building right now. Although there are pockets, like here in Jacksonville Beach, where I am, the retail side of things doesn't seem to have been affected at all. If anything, we're seeing a ton of restaurants open and a ton of new businesses come to the area. So it may be somewhat location dependent too, which in real estate is usually the case.
Are you concerned at all about just housing in general, from the standpoint of the BlackRocks of the world, or whoever those people are, buying up large tranches of, single family homes and controlling that space? Where do you think that's headed? Because it doesn't look like interest rate raises have dampened demand a lot.
No, it really hasn't. Surprisingly, if you had asked me the same question last year, I would have said, yeah, I'm really worried about it. But today, not really. I feel like the BlackRocks of the world who got in a year or two ago and are leasing out, they're still using the properties as single family homes. They're just for lease instead of for purchase. And so I don't think it really dampens the overall supply of available units for rental or purchase. Now, it may drive prices up on new purchases a bit, but the market is so much bigger than what BlackRock can do. So they might control one town by buying a huge amount of properties in that area, but the U.S. market is just way too large for BlackRock to really even have a minor effect on. So that specific issue doesn't worry me that much. And also, if prices come down, they won't control that either, and they're going to be the ones left holding the bag and have to sell those properties at a discount. So the fact is they're going to get caught up in market dynamics whether they like it or not, and they can't control it no matter how big BlackRock is. If they were just doing that and not doing anything else with all their trillions of dollars, then sure, that would worry me, but it's just such a small part of their business. I don't tend to spend a lot of time worrying about that.
Supply chain. My wife and I comment on this a lot, where we see the lack of availability of things that used to be easy to get in the United States. We're very spoiled, as a country. Pre-COVID, we were used to getting anything, not having to wait, etc. Are you seeing the same things? And if so, why is this still happening, and why hasn't it been fixed from a supply chain standpoint?
Yeah, it's interesting because I do see a bit of that. It's on some really random stuff
I
though now.
know.
It's
Yeah.
not it's not as widespread as it used to be. Clearly a lot of that has been solved, but it does still exist. And yeah, every once in a while I'll run into it and just kind of scratch my head. How can they still be having this issue? But if you look at the statistics on a national basis, the purchasing survey that comes out monthly, pretty much everything has been fixed in the data. Now, we're still seeing it pop up here and there on certain items, but if you look at the national data, it's gotten so much better than where it was a year ago and 2 years ago, when everything was just so wonky that you couldn't get any inputs for manufacturing. You couldn't, and that meant you couldn't get any goods on the downstream side either. So I think that those issues will slowly go away over the next couple of years. But yeah, it's still happening. And I think it's still, like I said, it's sort of the COVID effect of there's just some parts of China that were later to open than others, and maybe the factory was located there, or there's a whole host of reasons. Shipping could have been the issue, although the shipping issues, if you look at the data, have shipping prices have come down to pre-COVID levels. I'm talking about containers coming over from Asia. And so those types of hurdles are much less than they used to be, but that doesn't mean that a single company couldn't get caught up in it or have issues with that. So I think that's what we're seeing now, very much on a spot basis, rather than as the entire world has been affected by this COVID shutdown, and we can't get anything right.
I'm talking to Adam Van Wee of Van Wee Financial, phenomenal fee-only planner. If you're looking for someone long-term, young, vibrant, IQ, that's going to listen, he uses his ears and his mouth in proportion. We recommend people to him all day long without hesitation. So if you're shopping or just want to get a second opinion, I would encourage you to go to vanweefinancial.com. We are going to have all those links, etc. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is China in general, because I'm kind of tired of the whole China thing, that we're afraid of China. What's going to, are they going to overtake us? What's your take on them? Because to me, they're not a threat.
No, not to us, but if I were Taiwan, I might be a little bit worried. I think that China right now as an investment, which is how I tend to look at everything, is not a place that we're putting money. They've made a lot of missteps recently. I think that historically they've been really, really good at doing all the right things at all the right times. But lately, I feel like they're sort of out of step with the global politics. I'll put it that way. They haven't been doing the things that I think that they should do to stay on top, or trying to get to that top position. I think they've really, really slipped lately. And outside of Taiwan, they worry me a lot less than what they used to.
Yeah, the Taiwan thing's an interesting one, because that could be the game changer. It's like that's the ace of spades that they're getting ready to play and call our bluff.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens with that. But as a threat, I don't see them. I mean, yes, they're huge and they have a zillion people, and sure, I get it. But from a technology standpoint, innovation standpoint, creativity standpoint, this country, I'm a homer here a little bit, but I have full faith in what we're doing. Let's pivot a little bit internationally. Obviously, the war continues. Russia keeps playing around, and that doesn't seem to have affected the markets. But I'm always thinking we're one dirty bomb away from chaos.
Yeah.
What are you telling your clients right here?
With the Russia situation, speaking of countries that have really shown to be not what we thought they were, I
Yeah,
mean, Russia can't even handle an invasion of a small neighbor. Are they really a threat to us outside the nuclear arena, obviously?
right.
But wow, their army looks inept. Their leadership looks weak. It's just from one thing to another, just not what we thought they were at all. But yes, as far as a dirty bomb goes or a
Yeah,
nuke, I mean that is the real concern there. But honestly, there's nothing that we can do to change whatever is going to happen there. So for now, we have to go with the information that they have, and even Putin's crazy mind hasn't seemed to go to that area yet, at least. So I think we have to. I think we have to assume that he wants to get this done, but not in that way, and hopefully that will continue. But really, I mean, that is the X factor. Nothing we can do to control it. The only thing that we can do is continue to invest in a balanced portfolio that has safe
right.
assets and risk assets. And I don't think we're going to adjust our portfolios based on a land war in Asia. Just not our. That's not really in our purview right now.
Russia has been taken off a lot of investment lists and indices, haven't they? I mean, there's a lot of flow that's not going in, right?
Yeah, we're still getting whenever we log into our TD Ameritrade website, there's still a thing that pops up that says that Russian securities are very limited if you can trade them at all. So yeah, it's not really an investable country right now, nor would I want to for
Yeah,
that
it's going
matter.
to be interesting to see just how Putin survives this politically and actually, I guess, physically. I mean, I do
True.
think there's internal threats with them, but there's always wars, man. There's always stuff that's happening. And obviously, we're going into election season. Do you think the election, regardless of who wins either way, I know both of us are not really political, we're conservative monetarily. That doesn't, that's a broad spectrum. I always tell people I'm conservative when it comes to money because, that's what we do.
For sure. For sure.
Forget politics. In fact, turn off the cable, please. Um, do you think the election of the same people looks like it, is
Yeah.
going to affect positive or negatively the markets?
I mean, first of all, I do want to say that there's a lot of time between now and the election, and hopefully things can change because they're just recycling the same people over and over.
Can't we do better? Literally as a country, if I'm looking inside, I'm going, that's all you got?
Right. This is the best options, really.
Come on, man.
I do. There are some people running that I think are a lot better candidates, but the establishment and the media, they just won't let it happen. It's so frustrating as someone who really hates politics. I hate all of it. It makes me disgusted, and I don't watch the cable news. And but I do think there's better ideas out there. They just aren't allowed to come to the surface. And so I think the one good thing out of that is that you kind of know what you're getting. Either whatever happens, you kind of know what you're getting, and they both. It's one side has seen a little bit of a dip in the market, but it's starting to bounce back, and the other side was really good until COVID. So so economy wise, I don't think that either one is going to be a complete disaster. There's obviously one side that I think has a little bit better track record, but I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference, honestly.
The common theme and the culprit, in my opinion, is the media, both sides. And if you're out there as a listener or viewer and you're defending one side of the media, you're the problem. Okay,
that's right.
You are the problem. If the media is in the way of unbelievable success and growth of this country because they have agendas, and it literally drives me crazy to the point where I about 3 months ago, I used to watch it just because clients talked about it. If you want to call me and schedule a call with me and talk politics, good luck, man, because I'm not watching any of it, period. It doesn't matter. I'm looking more at the monetary side, and I'm gauging what's happening based on that and based on conversations with people like Adam. Great story. A recent podcast I just did with a guy named Larry Kotlikoff, which is he's a renowned economics professor from Boston University. And for people that are political wonks, he ran for president a while back just based on economics. And his platform was not only perfect and beautiful, it would have worked. Of course, they shot him down because it's so pragmatic and he's not politically correct. But boy, it would be nice to have a true business person, not an inheritance baby in there, that or a lifetime politician that really has run businesses. I only think there's a handful in the races now that have actually run a business and met a payroll. Am I right?
Yeah, definitely. They're out there. And I've been listening to some of I don't like politics, but I am because of my job, I have to stay on top of it. And I do like hearing good ideas. So I have been listening to some of the people that have thrown their hat in the ring that aren't as popular
and don't have a chance.
But man, they really have some great ideas. Unfortunately, they just won't ever get there. And part of the problem is this country has adopted a sports team mentality, but for politics.
They have.
And so
put.
If you find that you are rooting for your team, regardless of how bad the person is or their ideas are, you're doing it wrong. That is not how we should be thinking about politics. We should be voting for people with the best new ideas and the best leadership ideas, not because they wear the right lapel pin or have the letter by their name. It just doesn't make any sense. And it just really frustrates me to no end.
And here's the two reasons it's not going to change. The first reason is I always tell people, think of the dumbest person you've ever met at a cocktail party. Of when you stopped talking to them, you felt like you lost IQ. That person votes, and their vote nullifies you. The other thing that is a scary one is 60% of adults in the United States have less than $400 in their checking account.
That's right.
So they're going to vote differently about monetary policy. They're voting survival. They're voting them. And you can't really blame them, but 60% moves the needle, and the politicians certainly know that. I always have to remind my clients, I'm sure you do yours as well, whether you think you're the evil rich, you are. You are the evil rich politically. So, live your life, maximize, do the best you can, but you're not going to be able to move the needle because you're being outvoted, and that's going to increase over time, in my opinion. Do you agree?
I do, unfortunately. Even someone who, you could be looking at a couple of retired teachers who have either a pension or a 401k that they've funded their entire lives, and they have a moderate amount of money. They'll probably have a nice retirement. They're never going to be rich. But guess what? They're rich. That, according to politicians, they are the evil rich. And how can you say that about a couple that has worked their entire lives and did everything right and probably made a lot of sacrifices to get there, and then they're the bad guys? What is wrong with this country, and why are we viewing things that way? It just doesn't make any sense.
It is sad. And there's a book that Adam and I both are familiar with, this from way back, called Millionaire Next Door. And Millionaire Next Door describes what Adam just talked about, which is people that scrimped and saved and did without. 20 years later, they look up and they have a 7-figure portfolio, yet they still are couponing at the local grocery store, which I understand those scars of scarcity, but I always tell people, if you don't think you're rich, you are. And I give them that, 6 out of 10 people, I just say, hey, you're driving down the road, whatever road that is, 6 of those cars around you, of the 10 cars you see, have $400 of your checking account, drive slow and drive in the right lane, please, because that's the reason for the litigious nature of this country. Question, what are the potential hiccups, speed bumps, pitfalls that you see that might happen, but you hope don't going forward?
Well, I think we addressed some of them. We've got the issues in Asia, China, and Russia, and so those are the big ones right now in my mind. The other ones would be a sudden turnaround in the inflation data. That would be a bad one. Right now, the inflation data is heading lower, as it should, after a disastrous last year where we saw above 9% inflation, and that's what the government admits to. So it was even higher.
But don't you think they're cooking the books, and as soon as they can politically feel like they can lower rates, they will?
That's a good question. I don't know what Powell's going to do. They've been signaling they're going to go even higher, which I think is a mistake at this point.
Totally. It's a total mistake, even though it makes me very, very successful in my end. And
Yeah,
we're going 100 miles an hour, but I
sure.
can't see it. I don't see the justification.
I don't see it either. I don't think they've given it enough time for the rate hikes to work their way through the system. It takes a long time, as we know, for the financial world to have a reaction to things that have happened. So think about COVID. We didn't see inflation top out at 9% until last summer. That's 2022. COVID happened in 2020. So we were pumping money into the system for over a year and a half, 2 years before we really saw the repercussions. Now they expect to lower rates over the course of 8, 9 months, and then determine whether or not it's worked on the 9th month. No, you have to give it at least an equal amount of time that it took for the inflation to pop up for it to go away. So it just doesn't make any sense for them to expect an immediate read on how their actions have affected the economy when that isn't what happened on the other side.
Pivot again, because that's how my brain works, Adam,
Sure.
These ESG funds, isn't that what they're called? The environmental.
Unfortunately,
I read an article last night that when I read it, I literally put my phone down and just let out the biggest groan, because what it was saying was there's one lady that literally decides who's acceptable. I forgot who she works with. It could be one of the big firms. I don't know. But she had put Exxon in front of Tesla.
yeah.
And I'm thinking and I'm not listen. Musk is a freak. He's an alien. He's smart. I could care either way. Okay, but he had a good point. How are they in front of him and he's not putting out any carbon emissions? And it comes down to political. But I also saw the money raised in these funds was like upwards to 30 trillion or some crazy amount. Tell me your take on this, and how is it affecting markets and decisions that you have to make, even though you might not agree with it?
Absolutely. So first of all, the politicization, if I could talk, is of everything is just so far beyond what I ever thought it would be. And this issue is about as politicized as it could be.
Explain to people what it is. I mean, I just threw out ESG as an acronym. I'm not sure that's the right one, but
no, that's
E
right.
stands for environmental.
Yep, social and governance. And what it is basically a ranking score for companies that want to be considered politically correct, whatever, environmentally friendly, promoting.
What's the genesis of this? It's not been around a long time, Adam. Where did it come from? Was it a BlackRock thing? Nothing against BlackRock. I love their building in Manhattan. Walk by it all the time.
Yeah, I think it all came out of it actually came from demand in the marketplace. And so people want to invest, especially younger people these days. They want to invest in ways that they think are going to save the planet. And so that's where it came out of. The idea came out of something that was probably good, like most things, and then it got twisted into this what it is today, which is a political ranking of companies that do the most for politicians to consider them environmentally and socially responsible. And so that's where we are today. And the problem is now, also, look at this. You can own SPY. It owns all of the 500 companies in the S&P 500. Or
that's the ETF, right?
It's an ETF, yeah. Or you can use the ESG ETF that takes the S&P 500, cuts out a handful of companies that they don't consider environmentally and socially acceptable, and they'll charge you maybe 60 more basis points to own the exact same thing without 100 other companies. And guess who makes more money? The ETF companies. So who do you think the ETF companies are lobbying to try and get this included in everyone's 401k and pension plan? Why? Because they make 60 more bips every time you own the ESG fund versus the S&P 500 fund.
And bips is 0.6 of 1%. I mean, it's 60 cents on the dollar is the way that bips is an internal thing that us in the business talk about. People are like, bips, what the heck is a bip?
Yeah, sorry.
Here's the interesting part about that is, once again, just kind of being the street person that I am, grew up poor in North Carolina, and here we are. If it monetarily benefits a company to be on that list, I'm going to tell you right now, people are getting paid off. I don't care what anyone says. There's nothing honorable going on the background. If I know that I'm going to get extra trillions or billions or hundreds of billions in my coffers, if my company makes it on that list, and there's a handful of people that make that decision, the handful of people making that decision are doing well. And I think that's the problem with it. I'm like you, conceptually, got it, understand it. There's an argument for it. I understand it, but it's being bastardized. And I actually think it's disrupting normal flow within the business. The media doesn't cover it like the CNBCs and the Fox Business, because those people buy ads, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, and getting on that list is very, very important. And I can assure you that there's nobody who's making the decision about who gets on that list that isn't rich. I wonder why.
Let's talk bonds for a second. Bonds have gotten the crap slapped out of them. And I love when people go, well, I've got safe money in bonds. They told me that like 2 years ago. I'm like, listen, player,
Yeah.
bonds are volatile. There's more bonds than there are stocks. And let me tell you something, be careful with closed-end bond funds and all that stuff. I used to do that in a previous life, and Adam does that every single day. Adam, weigh in on bonds and what you're telling your clients right here.
Man, I love bonds today. I really do. It makes my job so much easier when I can put a handful of a portion of their investment portfolio in something that's going to yield, 4 to 6%, and has an almost guaranteed principal return at the end of the period. So I'm buying individual bonds, I'm buying treasuries, I'm buying CDs right now, and we're putting a good amount of money in all of those and getting a nice return. Now, the opportunity cost of that is that money wasn't in QQQ or the NASDAQ ETF or something else this year. And so it didn't make 30% so far, but that's not what we were shooting for with that part of the portfolio. We were shooting for a safe, guaranteed return, and bond prices are down and yields are up. To me, that's a buying opportunity. I really like bonds. I think, like you, that the government is itching to bring rates back down as soon as they can. And when that happens, bond prices will rise. And so if you own it, you're getting a great yield and the price is going to go up. Seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, the correlation I make with bonds and Boo Powell at the Fed and the Dutch boy haircut Yellen, love her haircut, by the way, is that, think about if you had a mortgage. A lot of people don't that are listening, but let's just assume that you do, and you just raise the interest rate, and you just keep raising the interest rate. Eventually, that doesn't make sense because you got to service the debt, and you're going to lower it. That correlation is that simple with what the Fed's doing. With 30 plus trillion, however you want to count it, in debt, every time they raise that interest rate, that payment gets a little more chunky. And that's the reason I think that all of this data can be cooked politically and presented through the media politically to justify the lowering of the rates. That's the reason I think as soon as they feel like they have cover to do that, they will. It'll probably be after the election, which makes me mad, but it is what it is. Do you agree with that?
I do. I completely agree. It's the same reason they can't tell you what the actual inflation numbers are, because every time inflation goes up, they have to raise Social Security by the equivalent amount. And so it benefits them to lie to you on the low side so they don't have to raise Social Security as much as inflation is. It really is.
Or in some of the calculations, they don't include gas or food. Okay, great. Right. That's fantastic. Right. Yeah, that doesn't play into anybody's inflation. I always tell my clients, first of all, inflation is customizable, meaning it affects everyone differently. Secondly, if you're well off and the evil rich, please stop bitching about that, because you're going to be fine. It's a moment in time for you. It always hits the low end of society the worst. Those Absolutely. 6 out of 10 driving around with $400 in a checking account, inflation is a 4-letter word. Trust me on that one. But for the rest of us that are fortunate, most of the people that are listening to this podcast, yeah, you've scrimped and saved and done without, and you're here for a reason, monetarily and financially, but you can buy the eggs. You'll be good. You can afford the eggs. You can afford the gas. I tell the story about my wife calling me from the grocery store and saying, "Can you believe the price of eggs is a few months back?" And I'm like, "Buy every egg, buy every carton. buy them all. We're good. Don't worry about it. Okay. It's for the person that has 5 kids and they're not making it. Those are the people that I'm truly concerned about. Another question that popped in my head was, we know of all the mistakes that investors make, panicking, not staying the course, all that stuff. What are some new mistakes that are making you scratch your head that you're hearing? What are the new ones that people are saying?
I mean, the new ones are just the old ones. They're
Repackaged.
New. Yeah, we just haven't seen them in a while. The worst one that I've seen lately is that people who were so excited to get a 5% return on a treasury bill are now calling me and regretting buying the T-bill because they could have put it in the market and made 15%.
Oh my God.
It's just so frustrating. That's why you have a balanced portfolio. You're happy with the 5% on that portion, and you're happy with the 15% on the other portion. And you're never going to get it exactly right. You can't time the market. And so it's just the same old.
It's the same old.
Really
it's amazing that people, we're back to where we were from the standpoint of the country having more credit card debt than we've ever had. All of those, I'm never going to let that happen to me again in 2008. Really? Okay. That's the reason that I love Adam's approach. VanWeFinancial.com. Again, you don't have to write it down. I'll have all his contact information. I encourage you to talk to him. No obligation, no cost. He'll talk to you. Adam, with that being said, can you explain your approach that you feel separates you from other fee-only planners, and explain that as well?
Sure. First of all, I think that if you are going to hire a financial planner, please find a fiduciary. Please find someone that's fee only. I am not the only one. I think I'm the best one, but that's personal.
Yeah, I got to call your wife and see if she concurs, but I'm not sure.
No. Can you call someone else who likes me more?
Exactly.
But I think that with us, you do get a very personal touch. We meet with all our clients up to 4 or 5 times a year. We send out reminders 4 times a year for them.
And that could be virtual. That could be face to face. It's their call, correct?
Yeah. We have clients all over the country. And so it's not limited to Northeast Florida, although the bulk of our clients are here.
Sure.
But we're very personal. We know all of our clients really well. We know their situations. We do a financial plan for all of them, most of them anyway. Some people just want us to manage their money. That's fine. But a lot of people, what they do want is a little bit more than just someone to manage your money. They want to take a look at their entire financial picture, figure out how to make sure that they never run out of money in retirement, figure out what the best cost-effective ways are to distribute their money in retirement. We consider taxes, we consider estate planning, we consider insurance. We really look at the whole picture. I think that is, if someone just wants to talk about their investment strategy with you and doesn't want to talk about your whole financial picture, you're probably in the wrong place.
Explain fee only versus fee based.
Sure. Fee based is just a term that people who sell things use to try and look like they're fee only. Honestly,
they're double dipping in essence.
Exactly. So they'll have a portion of what they do that's fee only, but then the other portion is commission based. And so fee based is just a kind of a slick way of trying to sound like what we are, which is fee only, which means we don't sell anything, we don't make any commissions, we make money based on the managing our portfolio. It's a percentage of the total assets.
Sure.
The reason that I think that is better is that when you have more money, we make more money. So our incentive is to grow your assets. You get wealthier, we get wealthier. It works out for everybody. Now, I'm not saying that commission people are bad. That is not.
Thank you, because that's me. But I understand. But seriously, I tell people all the time, for your non-annuity portfolio, you need a fee-only planner, period. You can't have all your money in annuities. I won't let you. And a lot of people don't need them. So, but that's the reason that I have you on. So people have, because in essence, I've vetted Adam. I've known Adam for a long, long time. Every single person I've referred to him comes back with glowing comments, and they love working with him. So I would encourage you to check him out. If you can kind of tell from just the way people talk and their demeanor, I would encourage you, if you're listening to the podcast, is to go on my Fun with Annuities YouTube channel. Check him out. He's kind of kind of a dashing young man. I can say that because I'm old. We got a few minutes, but I wanted to get your input on artificial intelligence. The AI thing is the acronym that I think is going to dominate the next couple of years. How is it going to affect the market, if at all? And if it's so, how? Tell me your take on all this.
It already has. Honestly, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen AI related businesses and just tech in general just take off. I mean, it has been incredible that this entire market rally over the last month has more or less been dedicated or been driven by AI. I really think it's an untapped sort of resource that we're just now getting a handle on. Now, it's also really scary because some of the things you can do with it are just evil.
It is nuts. It is crazy.
Yeah. So it scares me a bit, but at the same time, the potential of what it can do is pretty amazing. I think that if you don't have a portion of your portfolio dedicated to tech or AI related things, that it's probably a mistake. I think that everyone should have a little bit in there because that's where all the innovation is coming from right now. And I've said this for a long time. People always ask me, Adam, is tech overbought? Is that trade done? And I say, no, I don't think it is, even though it's seen, 20, 30% returns many times over the last 10 years. I think it still has room to run because that's what's driving the whole economy forward right now is innovation in the tech space. And man, I think this new technology is we're at the forefront of AI, not in the middle or at the end.
We've talked about, if you said what's the top 3 new innovation sectors that you're probably following, I don't know the order, but it's artificial intelligence, number 1 or 2. Blockchain would be number 1 or 2. Is there a third one that I'm missing and not thinking about?
I mean, those are clearly the 2 biggest, but I think there's a lot of sort of ancillary industries related to those. I guess you could make an argument for like the battery space.
Man, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm like Adam. If on the side, we should start the company to develop the battery. I don't have the background in that. I'm hoping you do, but that one is the killer app. So literally, those 3, I think, looking into those 3. That's where it's going to happen, in my opinion. Of course, I'm probably wrong, but those are the obvious ones in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that no matter what you're doing, you've got to power it. So you've got the batteries. The AI is sort of the brain behind it. Yeah, it's so I think those 3 areas, and honestly, you can own all of those by owning certain tech funds. It's not like it's difficult to do. In fact, if you can imagine it, there's probably an ETF that exists for it already today. That's how
and if not, there will be. Yeah, and that's why you need to talk to Adam. Don't do the research, call Adam, for God's sakes. I mean, that's what he does every single day. He's thinking like that. I asked him that question, not knowing the battery answer, but when he said it, I think the entire country listening to this podcast went, oh yeah. And that's the OEM moment of why you don't need to be doing it yourself, you masters of the universe out there. And you need to hire a good team around you to take care of your financial stuff. And because, one of the things I always tell people, Adam, you probably do too, chapter 2 of your life, your part-time job is your money and your estate and your family, in addition to your health and getting things lined up. And that's what I love about what Adam does. He gets all that lined up. And so that when you meet with him, whether virtually or in person, he's going to provide those detailed answers. I thought of an interesting marketing plan for you, Adam, because I live part-time here, Adam lives here, and there's the Mayo Clinic. And the Mayo Clinic is, I think, here, Jacksonville, Minneapolis, and Arizona. Okay.
Yeah.
People fly in all the time to the Mayo Clinic. I mean, to get into the Mayo Clinic is impossible. There's a waiting list. Think about this. Why wouldn't you just fly in to Jacksonville, go to Jacksonville Beach, hang out, and go see Adam once a year? Why wouldn't that be part of your retirement? And just people flying in like the Mayo, because people fly into the Mayo because they know they're going to get honest advice and top-notch service and the best. That's Adam. Seriously. And I'm so happy
Great
and
plan.
proud to have him on. Adam, we gotta tie it up here because you got to get to watching the screens and doing your thing.
I do.
But what we do, as you know, at the end of the podcast on Fun with Annuities, is we do a mic drop moment, of which I'm going to count you down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're going to wow us, Adam. There's no pressure whatsoever. You're going to wow us with a short soliloquy comment that people are going to listen to, get in their car or get on that treadmill and go, man, that made my day. So no pressure whatsoever. Here we go. Adam Van Wee in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
I think the best thing that I can leave you with right now is just don't be that guy that makes all the classic mistakes in investing. I mean, if the last year has taught us nothing, it's taught you that. If you sold out last year in July or August or October, look at what's happened to the market, and no one was predicting what happened this year in the market. And so you have to have a plan. You have to stay the course. Don't be reactive. Don't try and time the market. You will end up hurting your own results, and you won't get anything positive out of it. Just don't be that guy. I can't stress it
or
enough.
gal.
You
Guy
can't
or
predict. You can't predict what's going to happen in the market. Don't try. Just stick with your plan. Set a good plan. History tells you that it's going to work. Trust it. It will happen. Even when things look really, really bleak, like last October, there's always the turnaround is coming.
Got it. That's Adam Van Wee of Van Wee Financial. I want to thank all the people listening to us on the major podcast platforms and the YouTube channel Fun with Annuities. I will see you next time.